Hello everybody, this is Georgiana with Expressions Craft Studio. Welcome back. I am going to attempt another video creating stencils using a different shape. I tried this a minute ago. I ended up having to reboot my computer because DesignSpace just was not cooperating with me. That happens sometimes. It can be frustrating, but just know it happens to everyone. It's just part of the experience, I guess. So we're going to start by opening one of my projects, which is some templates I created for my stencils. I've got two different sizes in here. It says 5 by 7, but there's also a smaller one. I'm going to hit customize and we're going to open it. So you'll see I've got some text down here. I put that in there so that when I cut my stencils, I can put a little note, mostly to myself, on how long that stencil takes to cut. Come on, there we go. This was actually for a different stencil, but I left it in here just so I could just change the verbiage a little bit and make it fit whatever stencil I end up creating. So I just leave that in there and I just hide it. Over here, you just click this little eye and it hides it. So we're going to start. We're going to do our hexagon shape because I want to try and make a honeycomb. And we're going to make this quite a bit smaller because you can see that I'm not going to get very much of a design with my hexagon that large. And it's at actually it's at 3.593 inches in width. So let's take that down to 0.5. And then we will just enlarge this a little bit so we can see it a little bit better. And we're going to duplicate this. Nine's probably more than enough. So we're going to select all of those. And we're going to align, well, we can probably center horizontally. That's not what we want, is it? But it might work. It's not it's not the way I was going to go about it, but that doesn't mean it won't work. However, to minimize your confusion and mine, let's just try and back up here and do it the way I was envisioning. So center vertically. Okay, there we go. Now they're a little close together. So what we want to do is, because I'm going for a honeycomb shape, I want to drop every other one down. And I'm just going down 2 spaces or 2 clicks of my arrow. And let's duplicate this one more time. And let's put this one over here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both of those rows. I'm going to hit group just because I don't want to accidentally move part of that design without moving all of it. And I'm going to hit duplicate, which is right there. And we're going to move this over to the left. Now I like to use my arrow keys. That's just what I'm comfortable using, but you can move that however you like, whether you want to drag it with your mouse, use the align buttons, whatever works best for you. Using the arrow keys works best for me. Now I can see there's a bit of a difference here, and I don't know if you can tell. This, let me zoom in, make that a little bit easier. This space between this hexagon here and this one down here is not as wide as the space here, which is wider even than this space here. So I do need to do a little bit of work if I want to make these uniform. And ideally, that is what I want. So we're going to do a little bit of ungrouping here. And what I probably need to do is select this middle row and move it down a little more. Now see that's too much, isn't it? Maybe what I need to do, that was quite a bit of a gap. So maybe what I need to do is, let's delete that because I think I need to back up a little bit further. Let's copy, let's duplicate, oops, what did I do there? Must have hit the X accidentally. Let's duplicate that. And if we come down a little bit more, it still isn't quite right because that's exactly what we did before. Let's group it, and let's group this top row here. And let's see if we go to align it center horizontally, if that changes anything. It really didn't. We still don't have even gaps. And that is something I don't entirely understand. It's got to do with my spacing, I know that. And the reason I say that is because this gap here is wider than this gap here. And theoretically they should be the same, at least in my mind, but they're not. So I think, let's ungroup this. And let's move these down one more space. And let's see if that doesn't help solve our problem. Now, I could have selected all of those and did them all together, but I didn't think of that until I was already started. So let's group just for the sake of moving them easier. Let's duplicate that. I'm going to arrow over 5 and let's go down 1. Now that looks a lot better to me. You can see that the space between these two hexagons looks to be about the same as this space, and it's a little bit wider than the space there, but not a lot. So we're going to do that. We're going to duplicate that over and over again until we get it about the size that we want it, which will be long enough to fill in our template panel. Now let's zoom back out a little bit. I'm at 175%, as you can see here in the lower left corner, and that's getting to be a little bit big. I'm running out of room. I can't see as well as I'd like. Just to get an idea here, it looks like we're going to need maybe 3 or 4 more rows. So we're going to duplicate. That's 4, and I believe that will do it. No, let's do 1 more, just to be sure. We're going to duplicate again. Now, it may be hard to tell, but what you're looking at inside of all of these hexagons, this white pattern is what's going to be your stencil. The hexagons will cut out, they'll fall away, but what you'll be left is the white part, and that will create your stencil design. So we are going to weld all of these together. And we're going to hope that that works because I've been having some issues today. Before I do that, I actually want to duplicate this because I don't want to have to keep recreating it. I'll just move it over here out of the way. Bring this panel back over on top of our design. I'm going to select the design and the panel and hit center. And now we're going to slice. And we know we don't need that. We don't need that. And we don't need this gray part. So we're going to delete all that. Now this actually worked really well. Earlier I was having problems where some of the octagon or hexagons wouldn't cut out. And that's just a typical problem with DesignSpace. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes you can enlarge your design, and the larger you make it, the better it will cut sometimes if it's very intricate. But I wasn't having any luck with that either. And I had zoomed all the way up to making my project 100 inches wide. So when all else fails, shut everything down, reboot, and start over. So now we're going to take our frame. We're going to surround the panel that we've cut out. We're going to hit align and center, and we're going to weld that. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to make a copy of this. I'm going to duplicate that because I might want to do something else with it. So now we've got them both selected again. We're going to do align and center. And now we want to hit weld. And it actually worked great. That's awesome. It doesn't always work great. Like I said, I was having problems earlier. Just had to reboot. It's frustrating, but it's necessary sometimes. So now we're going to take our tab. Now this is an option. You do not have to use this tab if you don't want to. And in my first video, I show you how to make the tab, and it's at the 1.45 minute mark. So 1 minute 45 seconds. It's basically just two circles and a square. I used the square to cut the bit larger circle in half, and then I centered the smaller circle in the center of the tab and cut it out, sliced it out. And I use that because I like to put mine on a ring so that I can keep them all together and organized. But you don't need to do that. You can store them flat. You can skip this step if you like. So I've centered it by eye, but it's not completely centered. And I've made sure that the tab is touching the stencil. So now I'm going to hit align and center horizontally. And then I'm going to hit weld. And there you go. We have a stencil. A hexagon honeybee type stencil, and it is got a tab on it, which is what I like, and it's ready to go. So now I'm going to take this piece that we cut out and I'm going to minimize it some because I'm going to make a smaller stencil too. I mean, why not? We're here. We might as well. I might just want a small piece one day. I may never cut the small one out, but you never know. So I've got that one grouped, so I'm going to ungroup it, bring this over, and I see that I can make this a little smaller still. So I'm going to, because I might just want a different size of honeycomb. So I'm going to select both the pattern and the panel, align and center, and then I'm going to slice. And you can see we've got a nice little design there. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to take the frame, put the panel in the center of it roughly. I'm going to select both the panel and the frame, align and center. And then I'm going to weld it. And now I'm going to add my tab to the top, getting as close as I can without going too far down, because the more further down you go, or the further closer you move your tab into your stencil, the shorter and smaller your tab gets. Again, that's personal preference. So I'm going to select both, align and center horizontally, because I don't want to center it with this center, because that will put it in the center of the stencil over here where that crosshair is. I want to center horizontally, and then I want to weld. And there you go. Now we have two stencils, different sizes. As you can see, my honeycombs are different sizes. And they're ready to go. They're ready to be cut out. As I've said in some of my other videos, I just use junk mail, for lack of a better word. My husband hates that because he does work for the post office. They call it business mail or business class or something like that. But it's those flyers you get in the mail that are kind of on a plastic-coated cardstock. Right now you're probably getting a lot of political flyers. We also get them from security companies like CPI and all the different ones, and I get them from Joann's and Michael's and Kohl's and various places. And you can just dump those in the recycle bin, or you can use them for this. Now these are not going to hold up for years and years probably if you're using them regularly, because they are just cardstock that's been laminated or plastic coated, but they'll work. You'll get a good number of uses out of them, and then they can always go in the recycle bin. With that said, you can also cut them out of stencil material. You're going to use different settings, of course, than you would with these flyers, but your stencils will last as long as commercial made stencils will, because they're made out of the same products. And you can buy stencil products at any of your craft stores. Now, there's a Michael's close to me that's a smaller Michael's, and it might not have it, but Joann's definitely does, and I think the larger Michael's does, and I'm pretty sure Hobby Lobby does. Our AC Morse have closed. I don't know what other craft stores are available. Some of my stencil material I've had for over 20 years, and it's rolled up. I paid 99 cents a roll for it, and I've cut my stencils out and they're curled up. So I'm going to run those through my my Mink machine, which is like a laminator, to kind of heat them up and flatten them out. I've tested it. It works. So you can use, just know that you can use quilting stuff. And if you bought something that's on a roll and it's curled up, you can flatten it out. You just take some heat, whether you've got a heat press or even an iron. You'll just want to put either some freezer paper or parchment paper or something on either side of it so that it doesn't melt accidentally. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'm off topic again, kind of known for that. But here we've created 2 easy, simple, lovely stencils. So I'm going to delete my templates, and I like to put these all the way up in the corner. It's just easier for me to see them that way. Actually, I like that. And I'm going to save this, but I'm going to do a save as, because I don't want to save this as my template, which is what I've got here. I want to save this with a different name because A, I don't want to overwrite my template file, and B, I want to change the name of it so I recognize what it is. So instead of template, we're going to call this, you can either call it honeycomb or hexagon. I'll say hexagon because it's a little bit shorter than honeycomb. And I'm going to change this 1 to 2. And so to explain my naming convention to you is I do ECS, which is for Expressions Craft Studio. And then I do stencil so that I know kind of what I'm looking for. Hexagon gives me the design elements. 5x7 is just the size. It's not necessary because there's actually 2 sizes in here. And with the 2, I'm indicating that I have 2 separate sizes or 2 different files or images in there. So that's how my naming convention works. Everybody does it differently. You know, maybe you don't want something that complicated. That's up to you. But that's how I do it, and that's why I do it the way I do it. So I'm going to hit save, and you can see, well, it went fast because it's a pretty small file. So now we've got ECS stencil hexagon 5x7 with tab, because I put tabs on these. Some of them I don't have tabs on. And then there are 2 files or 2 images in this file. Now, if I had done save as, I would have just overwritten my template project, and I don't want to do that because I want to bring that back in. So I'm going to go back out here, find my template. I'm going to customize it. And there you go. I've got my template file back. So let's say we wanted to do something different with the hexagons. I don't know what. I don't really have anything in mind. But let's just play with it for a minute. So initially I had made these 0.5 and I couldn't get it to work, but I'm going to try it again since I rebooted. So 0.5 and enter. And I'm going to duplicate that. That's probably way more than I need. I'm going to select all of those, align and align bottom or top, whichever works. And you can see they're a little close together. I actually want those spaced out. So there's different ways you can do that. I'm just going to do it like this, one at a time, but I'm selecting them all to move them all over. You can sometimes align, under align, there's an option to distribute vertically and horizontally. I don't always have a lot of luck with that. Clearly, I do not understand how that works. Sometimes it works for me, sometimes it doesn't. So I rarely try it because I kind of just feel like I'm wasting my time most of the time. So here you go. You have a row of hexagons. I keep wanting to say octagons. I can't even say that correctly. So I'm going to group these together. I'm going to hit duplicate. I'm going to move them back over to the left 5 spaces, and I think down 1, because we're at 100% now, and you can see that's pretty narrow. If I were using stencil material, that would probably work because it's a thicker plastic, but using the cardboard flyer, the cardstock flyers, I'm going to separate that a little bit. So now I'm going to select both of those rows just to speed this up a little bit. And I'm just going to move those down. And we'll just select all 4 of them. And we'll move these down. Oops, that was too far. That looks right, and we'll do it one more time. And that should more than get us there. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make this design larger than my template panel, and I think we've done that. So we're going to select all of them, and they should all be perfectly aligned. So we're not going to hit align because they are aligned. We're going to select them all again, and we're going to hit weld. I had to select them again because I'd clicked off of it, so that deactivated my selection. So now I'm going to make a copy of this, and I'm going to select both the design and the panel. And actually, I've forgotten again, I want to duplicate this. Okay. And I might as well duplicate it. Well, I just want these in there. Let's just duplicate this one more time because I've got something I want to try with this one over here. All right, so now I'm going to take the panel. I'm going to center it, those two together. After I select them, I'm going to center them, and I'm going to hit slice. Now I'm going to remove the sliced bits. And select them all and hit the delete key. You can also hit the delete key up here with the little trash can. I just like to use my keyboard, so that's why I hit the delete key once they're selected. So now I'm going to take my frame and my panel that I've sliced, and I'm going to center them, and I'm going to weld. And this is where I had problems earlier. Some of these shapes wouldn't actually slice out. Most of them did, but there were quite a few that didn't. So rebooting my computer seems to have solved that problem, for which I am happy and grateful. So now I'm going to take my tab. I'm going to put it here on the top, just barely touching. Select the tab and the panel or stencil. Align and center horizontally. And I'm going to weld. And there you go. Now you've got just octagons. That's what will show up on your stencil. So with this one that was over here, I can't remember exactly what. I think I was just going to make it smaller is what my intention was. But if I make it too small, then it doesn't quite fit. But I think that's what I wanted to do. So let's do it. I'm going to duplicate it just in case I remember something that I've long since forgotten. Select both the panel and the design and center it and slice it. And we'll get rid of our sliced bits. There's our panel. I'm just going to delete all of those. So now let's see if you can tell. I think you can, that those are just smaller. Not a lot smaller, but a little bit smaller. So I'm going to select both the frame and the panel, align and center, and weld. And I actually like that better just because all of my octagons are whole, or, okay, they're hexagons, not octagons. Sorry about that. I should write that down and put it on a flashing sign in front of me. As you can see over here, because it was larger, it cut some of them off. The top and the bottom worked out well, but the sides, we just got partials. Whereas this one, they fit completely within the frame. So we're going to add our tab to the top. And again, we're going to center it horizontally, and we're going to weld. And there you have it. So now you've got two more stencils that we just quickly created. Now I could take this one as well. Let's duplicate that. And I could make this even smaller and get a completely different size out of there. I can make that a little bit smaller still. So let's do that. Okay, so now we're going to align and center, and then we're going to slice. Remove the sliced bits out of the way, keeping the solid piece, or the mostly solid piece, I should say. We're going to add our frame to it, select both, and we're going to center it again. And then we're going to weld. And there you have a smaller one. So you can see each time I do that, the shapes of the hexagons get a little bit smaller. So I'm going to add my tab. Normally I duplicate that, but because I'm going to finish here, I'm just going to use the one that's there. We're going to center this as best we can. Not that that matters. It's more important to get it touching. And we're going to align, center horizontally, and weld. And so now you can see we've got 3 nice little stencils. They're all octagons. We're going to delete the original templates. I'm going to put these all over here because I like to see them when I open my file. And we're going to do another save as. Save as. And this one, ECS template, this one's going to be hexagons, which is what I saved the last one as. So it does typically have the same name, and normally that wouldn't work, but DesignSpace would just add another digit behind here to accommodate that. I'm going to change that to a 3 because there's actually 3 stencils in here. So now it is a completely different name, and I'm going to hit save. So maybe I should have named the first one honeycomb is what I'm trying to get at. Now this one's taking a little bit longer because there's a little bit more detail here. And there you go. You've created a whole nother set of stencils. So I'm going to move these. I'm going to put a link for these out here under the video. So it's a link to my Cricut design file. I'll do this for both this and the honeycomb style one. Feel free to use them. They are for personal use only. Please do not sell my designs or anybody else's designs. But use them for as much as you want. If you're making cards and selling cards, that's fine to use them for that. Just don't take the actual stencil design and sell that, and we'll be golden. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. If it's not too much trouble, I would love a thumbs up. I would love it if you would subscribe. You are welcome to join our Facebook group at ECS or Expressions Craft Studio on Facebook. There's a page and a group. The group is where I store the files because it's an option there, whereas it's not on the page, but I will also post the link on the page, so you'll be able to find it either way. Anyway, I would love to see what you can create out of these. I hope you've learned something. I hope this has been helpful. I've enjoyed, I'd say talking to you, but I'm really talking to myself. Let's be real here. But I kind of think I'm good company, so to each his own. Anyway, that's today's little bit of humor, along with a lot of stuttering and stammering. And until next time, happy crafting.